So thank you everyone for sticking around. We have the schedule for this afternoon is we're going to have each of the someone from each of the three working groups come up and give a kind of 5-minute highlights of what was discussed, some of the key issues, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A for 10 minutes, and that'll get us to about 2:55. We're expecting Commissioner Quarles to arrive about 3 p.m. So with that, we'll kind of get started. Norma, you want to come up and start?
Okay, thanks. All right, so we were addressing the relationship with retailers and restaurants and how to make surplus goods pay. And our conversation gravitated toward, we had larger producers and smaller producers in our group, and our conversation gravitated toward actually a couple of those things, but we started on a conversation about co-ops in rural areas where farmers don't have to be present all the time, but can actually get their goods out to the marketplace. Along the order of, and it's a kind of an interesting comparison, but the antique mall where, I think we've all been there, where you go, there's a bunch of different booths, but there's only 3 or 4 actual booth owners there at any one time, and they take care of everybody. So that was a model that was talked about for being in downtown areas. Good thought. There's some issues that we discussed, which would be things like, how do you deal with the regulations and the labor and the money to run it, those types of things. So we talked about that. Processing facilities for small farmers and farmers that cannot produce items in the correct form, and that goes to some restaurants, but also mostly educational institutions. The corn that the farmer has to sell but can't deliver in cleaned and in the proper length of pieces. Those processing facilities have been discussed, I know, in a lot of different forms. Kitchens that will actually act as a go-between. It's been tried in different areas in the state. Some have been semi-successful, some haven't. So that's an area that we feel like is a challenge and needed more study. Distributor and contract companies using more local. We talked about that this morning. I came back around to that this afternoon. The ability to get the same price for your product locally that the large distributor or contract company will pay for that same thing from California or another market has not always been easy, and that's one that we thought really needs some work. Also, local distributors that are willing to go the extra mile to work with local producers and use their products, a challenge. More place to sell product seconds and products that don't look like they quote, belong in the grocery shelf because they don't fit the bill of the very pretty tomato or the very pretty orange. They're most often better than what you're going to see, but people won't buy it. So overcoming that, finding markets for that, getting our retailers to use and restaurants to pick that up and use it is the final challenge. So, and these are, thank you. These are just some drill downs on those 4 topics. We determined that there are some markets that are operating as in the co-op style. We looked at the labor and how that might be used as volunteers, that they may be placed downtown, and that regulations to address them could be done at the local level. Processing facilities, talked about helping small farmers, getting certified kitchen grants. The Kentucky State University folks were in our meeting, and they have actually a mobile processing unit that they use and have taken around. It's funded by a USDA grant. They have one right now, and they said they could probably use another one. One for fruits and vegetables, I should say, and one for poultry and some fish. Then the distributor companies, how can we get them to value local and put in the extra effort, more of a place to sell seconds of the product? So, and why do large distributors not use local food? Ease of use, financial. There was a lot of discussion, and I've heard this more often than not, about the ease of use. It's much easier to get a big thing of lettuce all washed and processed than it is to get it for a local farmer where they haven't had the ability to clean it, process it, wash it. Why can't some of our educational institutions, other large providers of meals, go the extra mile and put in some of those, the ability to do some of that sort of thing? So that's what we covered. If anybody that was in our group would like to add anything, please, I invite you to do that.
Yeah, what else wasn't, first of all, who else in the group have anything to add that Norma didn't articulate? If not, part of this process today, not only the breakout groups, but this part of the session is what wasn't included that kind of fit under that kind of category of local foods and market share and the like. What wasn't included there?
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, one of the things we'd had to leave. We did not have a chef in our group, so we could have been able to explore that further if we had, because I know that's, they have their own special set of concerns, and so many of them have done such a good job. But as we talked this morning, there's still the issue of getting it into some of the more standard restaurant groups that don't use local.
What else should be on this list for our planning purposes going forward?
Anybody?
They must have done pretty well. Stephanie, want to come down here and tell us about Glean Kentucky? Because we talked about excess food, our secondary market for food, but I thought if you'll come down here, give you a chance to chat about that.
Yeah, that is the other thing that was missing. Stephanie, we needed her in our group.
She's going to need this too.
Okay.
Wow, good thing I know Glean Kentucky well. I'm prepared for the
Oh, wait, now we're all tangled up. There we go.
This is from
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. So my name is Stephanie. I'm the executive director of Glean Kentucky. And I appreciated the lady sitting next to me said, "Oh, you're Glean Kentucky." I am here. Here I am. Grateful to be here. I definitely should have been in this group, although I enjoyed the group that I was in. So Glean Kentucky is a nonprofit. We are based in Fayette County, but we have an 8-county service area. So basically Fayette County and the counties that touch it. And what we do is we focus on redistributing excess fresh produce. So those seconds, thirds, fourths, on down the line, basically anything that is still edible, but maybe has a difficult time selling because of its appearance, because of how close it is to being ripe or overripe. What we do is we try to intercept that produce before it is thrown away or tilled under or composted, and take it to a network of agencies that feed people in need. So we don't feed people directly, we don't grow food, we're sort of the in-between. We connect excess produce with agencies that focus on feeding or agencies that focus on other social services and have feeding as a component of what they do, in an effort to increase the nutrition of the meals that are being provided to those in need in our community. We touched on that earlier. It's not just a lack of food, but a lack of nutrition, and that's something that's very important to Glean Kentucky trying to address. So.
Any other questions for Stephanie? Okay, one, Laura.
If
great question. So there is currently a tax credit. At the state level, it's 10% of the retail value of the food. The burden is on you to record what you donate and the value of it. Glean Kentucky can't value it for you, but we do keep detailed records of weights and things like that so we can support you. Yep, great question.
Other questions?
You pick it up, correct?
Yeah, so we don't pay for the food, but we do have a network of volunteers who can limit the cost to donating. We both pick up food from a retail environment as well as harvest food from a farm or garden or whatever it may be.
Question. What liability does the farmer have once they give you the food?
Great question. That comes up a lot. There is no liability on the farmer, the donor of food, so long as you are donating in good faith. So unless you know it is tainted food, you're good. And there's actually state legislation now. That's a federal law that's been in place since the 90s called the Emerson Act, but there's now state legislation to reinforce that. So that's really great.